Hey folks, welcome to this special Monday edition of the Whitfield Report. I'm your host, Sam Whitfield, recording from NGC Studios here in South Florida, very early in the morning, and whatnot. I usually don't do a show on Mondays, folks. In fact, I don't think I've done a Monday show. I've never done a Monday show for the Whitfield Report. I think the last time I did a podcast on Monday was for the Whitfield analysis a long-ass time ago. I'm not going to try and remember exactly when because that would be going back really far. In fact, maybe the last time I did a Monday show was back when I was on JFN filling in for Jason Vealey, because I know that he used to do shows on Mondays. But anyway, I digress. Shout out to Jason and shout out to the On Tap guys as always. Shout out to Matt Dallas as well, who will be joining me later this week on the podcast, probably on Thursday at some point, to discuss a new project that he's working on and a new project that I will be working on with him. And I'm very excited about that. So, but anyway, folks, the reason why I'm doing a show on Monday is because there was no show on Saturday, as most of you probably know, either because you tuned into the YouTube, you checked the YouTube channel and you saw my video announcement, or some of you guys saw that there was no podcast, for Saturday that was released yesterday. Usually I record I take the live stream from Saturday and I put that on the auto feed on Sunday, but a few of you guys messaged me and, DM'd me on Twitter and, asked, where is the new episode? Well, folks, long story short, my guest, Jimmy from Great Britain, I've been promoting this guy for a while, and he really does do great content. Long story short, his internet crapped out on Saturday. So I'm on the East Coast of the United States, right? I'm in the Eastern time zone. England is 5 hours ahead of us, right? So I was going to do the show at 5 p.m. Eastern, which is my time. He was going to do the show at 10 p.m. his time. We were going to shoot the shit for a while. I was going to ask him about his channel and, what he does. And then I was going to dive into who he is as a person, what he's interested in, outside of politics, stuff like that. The usual stuff that I've done in interviews, over the past, year, kind of. So we were set to go, and then his internet, I guess, went out. I found this out later, after the fact. I found this out, on Sunday, when I did get a hold of him. His internet went out, and because of that, he had no way really to get a hold of anyone, here in the U.S., And, I'm not the only one that he knows here in the States either. But, he couldn't call me. He has my number, but he couldn't call me because of international rates. And, obviously he doesn't want, to pay that. And he doesn't want me to pay that on my end. So, long story short, we just weren't able to make contact because of that. And, because of technical difficulties. Which has happened before, in the past, where I just haven't been able to do a show because of technical difficulties. And, that happened for Jimmy. And honestly, I didn't have any backup material like whatsoever in the queue. And then, all of my usual stand-in guests were busy. So honestly, rather than try and cobble together like a mediocre show, I just figured that I would skip Saturday's show and kind of take the night off, which was actually nice for me for a change. And then work on my review for El Camino, the Breaking Bad movie, which is what we're going to talk about today, actually, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to do this podcast for you guys as like a bonus podcast anyway, probably like on Tuesday, but I want to get this out to you now since, you guys didn't have the Saturday show. So anyway, for those of you who, may or may not be aware, and, if you're living in 2019, you probably know by now, Netflix, just came out with El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. So it's the sequel to the Breaking Bad television show with Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul, right? And the series ended in 2013, and now it's 7 years later. They're basically kind of wrapping up kind of some loose threads. So anyway, Breaking Bad is a phenomenal series. But I'm going to be focusing on El Camino. So, quick heads up. I guess this would be the point in the podcast that you would, if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, well then, what are you doing with your life in 2019? How have you not seen one of the greatest, if not the greatest, TV show of the last decade? Where are you? If you haven't seen Breaking Bad, please do yourself a favor and just go watch that series. I may do like a Breaking Bad, critique / review at some point too, just in general. But, please, if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, go watch that first for sure. And I'll be spoiling things from Breaking Bad too. So if you haven't watched Breaking Bad, you might want to skip this podcast. And if you've seen Breaking Bad, but you haven't seen El Camino yet, please watch El Camino first, because this will be a spoiler-filled podcast. Or you could be in that third category of person, where you're like me, you like movie review podcasts and you don't give a fuck if they're spoiled, right? You could be that third person, but just be warned. If you haven't seen either of these or anything like that, don't get mad at me when you're, when I either spoil something for you or you're completely lost as to what is going on, okay? Okay, bucko? Okay. We've got that all cleared up. So, you might want to pause now. And, basically, by hearing that tone right there, we are now in spoiler territory, ladies and gentlemen. So, where to even begin with this movie? there's a lot to unpack here. Pretty much, I like. First off, this movie. This movie did some things that surprised me, but surprised me in a really good way. Like they felt right. Overall, I will just say this to start off. I really liked this movie. I in some ways it exceeded my expectation. In other ways, it met my expectation, and like I wasn't blown away by how good it was, but I was just like, yeah, this is what we deserved, and this is what we needed. I'm happy. Do you got? And I hope that makes sense to like some of you guys. Where like I wasn't blown away, but I was just incredibly satisfied with this movie overall. It wasn't perfect, and I'll cover that, too. But we'll get to all that. The fact that it starts off with that flashback of Mike and Jesse talking about where Jesse asked Mike where it would go to start over if he were young. Mike basically says Alaska. There were references like throughout the series as that like Jesse wanted to go maybe to Alaska with Jane at some point. Like, Alaska was referenced a few times. And, I'm glad that they kind of took that, they picked that thread up. Vince Gilligan did, and, kind of like ran with it, but didn't, like bludgeon us with either. So that was the first flashback. Then they pretty much pick up right where the series finale left off. We see Jesse fleeing the compound. It literally picks up right. If my fellow Breaking Bad fans remember, the finale, Jesse flees in the El Camino. We see him laughing and simultaneously screaming. Then it cuts off. That's the last time we see him. Walt goes into the compound, finds the meth lab, basically touches it, succumbs to his injuries, collapses and dies, and we hear Baby Blue, and arguably one of the greatest, TV series finales. So it was awesome that this movie basically picked up right where that last shot of Jesse came. What I particularly like about this film is multiple times we kind of see the fallout. We see the fallout of what Walter White / Heisenberg's impact was, in the sense that Walter White and Heisenberg is dead, but just because he's dead, Walter left a whole bunch of shit still fucked up. Yeah, he did kind of redeem himself in the end, but we know that as the audience, but the rest of the world and the rest of the country, shit is still really fucked up. In New Mexico. So we see Jesse like flinging the El Camino. We see all those cop cars, like coming towards the compound. It's like it's like a small army basically. We see Badger and Skinny Pete. They're playing video games. They're doing their thing. The other thing I like too is this is kind of a side note. I like that they didn't try to like make this film like 2019-ish. I kind of like that they kept it in like mid 2000s, like 2010-ish maybe, which is kind of when the Breaking Bad storyline takes place. I like that they kept their timeline consistent. So like there wasn't I don't think there was like a PS4, like an iPhone 6, or anything that is like super 2019. I like that they kept the timeline, pretty like consistent, even with things like, Badger and Skinny Pete. Let's see. I like the fact that they didn't overuse Badger and Skinny Pete either, right? We see them in the beginning, we kind of get like refamiliarized. They have a couple good comedic moments. We then see how they basically help Jesse out of his, jam a bit. They help get him cleaned up. They give him a place to stay for like a day. Give him a shower. You really see how like, despite them being like drug addicts and kind of dregs of society, they do have hearts. They do genuinely care about Jesse, and they have his back. That scene where Jesse asks like Skinny Pete why he's helping him, and he says, "You're my hero, man." Like that's really touching. I think that that's beautiful. So I'm glad that Skinny Pete and Badger showed up. I'm glad that they weren't like. I'm glad that they didn't show up like throughout the entire movie. That was one thing I was afraid that they were going to do, was kind of have it be like, Jesse and Badger and Skinny Pete like all teaming up, and like I was kind of afraid that they were going to do that, and I'm glad that then Skinny Pete and Badger I felt were there for the right amount of time. They helped Jesse like start on his journey towards I don't really know if redemption I guess in a sense redemption would be the right word, but they had they had a good chunk of the story, but they served their purpose and they weren't overused. So I'm really glad about that. The flashbacks with Todd and Jesse kind of filling in that arena. I mean, honestly, the fact that they were able to use that to like help set up, Jesse's narrative of like needing the money and whatnot, like I felt that was good. I also felt like it was good. It made Todd's death in Breaking Bad like that much more satisfying, that we really got to see like what a true psycho, Todd really is. So that was satisfying. At the same time, that is kind of one of my criticisms of the movie. I do feel like they spent a little too much time with with Jesse and Todd. Um, especially since we know like what Todd's ending is, right? Again, it makes, Todd's death at the hands of Jesse more satisfying. But, because we know that ending, like, I didn't really feel like there was any need to, like, really spend as much time as we did with Todd, even in flashbacks. But, I mean, I do think in a way those serve their purpose. And I will say this, too. Hats off to Jesse Plemons, who plays Todd. I mean, that guy, I've seen him in a few things now, and he has an incredible range of acting. He really played the guy in, or he played the kid, one of the kids in Friday Night Lights. He actually seems to be a very nice guy in real life. Jesse Plemons does. Like, you never hear anything bad. I mean, yeah, he got picked to, play like one of the worst, most, sycophantic and most evil guys ever. So props off to him so props to him as an actor. He did a great job. Also kind of going on with the whole Todd / neo-Nazi thing. They did show parts throughout the movie where like Jesse was being tortured and abused by the neo-Nazis. They alluded in some of the press leading up to the movie that they were going to show this. The one thing that I was kind of afraid of was that they were going to harp on it a lot, and that they were also going to make like really gratuitous, too. And I liked that they definitely showed that it took place, but they weren't like gratuitous about how they showed it. Like you could really tell that Jesse got fucked up majorly when he was with the with the Nazis with Jack and his gang. But it wasn't like gratuitous, like in your face. Like you got the point of how horrible it was, but it wasn't too much. I know some directors that probably would have, gone to the level of showing it and like being really gratuitous with it. And I know that Vince Gilligan, like in the case of Face Off, like he's not afraid to show gratuitous stuff when necessary. Like he's not squeamish, but at the same time, he also knows when to put things in or leave things out, and really let the audience kind of imagine things for themselves. And he did a really good job of that in this movie. So once again, props to Vince Gilligan. So the thing with the apartment sequence with Jesse trying to find the money, that was great. Him touring the apartment, it was kind of like a homage, I guess, to like the cooking scenes that Jesse and Walt did in Breaking Bad. That was really good. I wasn't really sure where they were going to go with that, but they pulled that scene off, really that whole series of scenes off really well, I felt. And just also, the cinematography as a whole in this movie is really good. It's outstanding. Like, I know that Netflix is really killing it in terms of like, production quality. Like they did a fantastic job with Daredevil and the Punisher, right? I've praised those two, series multiple times. Like even Psy was kind of like, this is a Netflix movie. It's going to be good, but like this was like cinematic, like movie theater good cinematography that was in El Camino, and that in the apartment scene I really felt really showed that off, as did the scene in the desert. Basically every shot was really good. So then the whole plot with Ed, the vacuum salesman guy, and by the way, rest in peace, Robert Forster, great actor. Uh, they paid a few great homages to Jackie Brown, which is arguably his most famous movie, like in recent years. They paid some good, kind of homages to Jackie Brown in this movie with, which again was a Robert Forster movie, kind of, with his demeanor and just kind of how he acted, some of the interactions with Jesse. I really felt like he did a really good job once again playing Ed, in the series. And, like, I'm glad that he didn't just roll over and, like, take Jesse's money. I'm glad that he put up a challenge. But I'm glad that kind of also became the, the, kind of goal for Jesse to get that additional, I guess $18,000 or whatever he needed, to get the guy to help him. Right. I felt like that was a really good plot point. Okay, so kind of switching gears now, let me move on to criticisms a bit. And this really isn't so much of a criticism as much as it is like they could have maybe done better or something, or maybe it's been so long since I've seen Breaking Bad, which, by the way, the last time I watched Breaking Bad, like, the whole way through was like a year and a half ago, so it hasn't been that long. But even so, I felt like the whole setup with the welding guys, while it was interesting, I don't remember them from Breaking Bad as villains. Like, I don't remember them as Breaking Bad villains, right? And I didn't look this up, but like I can't remember whether or not they were in Breaking Bad or not. So the fact that, like, the one guy after, Jesse leaves Todd's apartment and, he recognizes that guy, and the guy's like, I was wondering how long it was going to take you to recognize me. I was watching with my parents, and like we've seen Breaking Bad, and we paused the movie, like none of us could remember where that guy, if that guy was in Breaking Bad, and we looked it up and we couldn't find anything. So that plot device, I kind of felt like I understand why they did that, because obviously I don't think it would have been good to like bring Gus back from the dead or anything like that. Like, I get the choice that they made. I just felt like they could have maybe explained it better a bit. I do kind of feel like the villains in this movie, so to speak, were kind of weak. That's my criticism of the movie, right? Um, they spend a you know they spend like a whole lot of time on this on this group of welders, right? These crooked like criminal welders that built the cage. Like I get it, they're evil dudes, but they're not the main baddies, in my opinion at least. I think it would have been cooler if maybe Jesse had to face off like against like more bikers, from like Jack's biker gang. Like, obviously it seems to me like Jack might have been like part of the Hell's Angels, or like definitely part of like a bigger network, right? And so like maybe that would have been like a better thing, to like have the villains be bikers or something like that. Um, but that would have just been my choice, right? Um, I mean the fight the fight scene, like the standoff off, that was cool. What they did again, I just felt like they could have done better with the villains, basically. So that's my biggest, I guess, critique. Kind of like criticism. My other criticism, I guess, and it's a very small one. Uh, Two things. One, I would have at least liked to have seen maybe like like maybe even like a brief cameo of Walter Jr. and Skylar. Like I know that there are a lot of Breaking Bad fans that for some reason hate those two characters. I don't know why. I get that Skylar kind of had a bitchy series, but like kind of had like a bitchy personality. But like even so, at the end of the series, you do feel sorry for her. I would have at least liked to have seen how the White family has to deal with the aftermath, of Walter's, fuck up, basically, as Heisenberg, right? I would have at least liked to have seen a cameo of that. I don't think it would have taken away from anything. Even though it's Jesse's story, like I just feel like they could have maybe put that in there somewhere. Um, and then like I felt like the whole thing with Jesse's parents. Um, I get that they used that as like a plot point for Jesse to get guns and whatnot, but I almost feel like that whole part with Jesse's parents, like on the news, that could have been the cameo from like Walter Jr. and Skylar or something like that. So I don't know. That's like my minor complaint, I guess. So the villains, and then some weird cameos, but that's about it. Now the part that a lot of people. Oh, one more quick critique too. Um, I was a bit disappointed that they didn't end up using the interrogation room scene um, with Skinny Pete that they showed in the trailer, right? Like that was the first trailer for El Camino when we basically got like the announcement. I would have liked to have seen that, like that scene played out in the movie and maybe developed like a little bit, kind of like again falling upon the aftermath of the fallout, of like a post Heisenberg New Mexico, right? That would have been cool. I feel like they could have included that scene in there and maybe like added a little more to that, right? So those are all my criticism. It's again not that many. So and whatnot. Now this is the part of the review that I bet a lot of you have been waiting for. You know, a lot of people. I assume I haven't listened to too many other podcasts, but I'm assuming this week, once the movie review podcasts get released, I'm assuming that this is going to be like a big talking point, right? Walter White and Bryan Cranston. We got Walt and Jesse together for one scene, right? And I know that there are some people I saw on Twitter that they were. I saw some people on Twitter who were like unhappy that we didn't see more of Walt in this movie. But honestly, I felt that scene, with Walt and Jesse, I felt like that scene was perfect. And I haven't read too much, but I don't know if that. I don't actually know if that's like an original scene. I think it is. But, it could have been like on the cutting room floor. Either way, it was great to see those two together on screen again. Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul. They both have great chemistry together on screen. Pardon the pun. Everything from the quippy dialogue, of like, you thought I didn't graduate high school, bitch? Like, you were serious about that? To like Walt encouraging to go to business school, and then saying like, you're extremely like for your age. Like, that entire scene was perfect. And it was exactly what we needed. And I know that some people are like disappointed that we didn't see more of, Walter White in this movie. That we didn't see, like either more flashbacks or, there were some people that were theorizing that like Walter was somehow alive. And I'll get to that in a sec. But I'm glad that we got that one scene. I felt that was a good scene, and I'm glad that we got like a good scene with Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul with Jesse and Walt. I'm glad that we got one good scene as opposed to multiple mediocre scenes. We got like a perfect scene, but we only got one, so that satisfies me. And we didn't need any more. Now, regarding Walt being dead, I know that there were fans that were obviously disappointed. But did any of you guys honestly think that Walt was going to like somehow miraculously survive? Right? And that they were going to like there were all these, crazy like theories that like Walt was alive and that they were secretly going to like, have him go like undercover and like do all like, no. Like, I don't think that Vince Gilligan would have used this to like relaunch Breaking Bad or something. So like, in all honesty, I'm glad that we got the one scene with, Walt and Jesse together. And, like the confirmation that Walter White is dead, for sure. I'm kind of glad that we got that too. And I guess here's the point. Like, El Camino is Jesse's story, right? It's his saga of personal redemption. Breaking Bad was the... Okay, so with Better Call Saul, right, that series, I haven't seen all of it yet. I haven't seen the final season. But that story like documents the rise and fall and then kind of like mediocre rise of Jim and McGill who becomes Saul Goodman, right? Better Call Saul is obviously, you know, Saul's story, right? Breaking Bad is the rise and fall of Walter White. You know, it's the fall from grace of Walter White, the rise of Heisenberg, and the fall of Heisenberg and the ultimate tragedy of Walter White. Right? Breaking Bad is Walt's story. So now, with El Camino is the story of Jesse's redemption. Therefore, it was and should have been, and they did a good job of it, making that film all about Jesse and keeping it centered on Jesse. Right? So they did a perfect job of that. You know, they kept the film focused on Jesse. They gave the fans what they wanted with Walt and with some of the other cameos, but they didn't bombard us. It was still Jesse's story ultimately, and I'm so glad that that was the case. So now, with the ending of Jesse going to Alaska, you know, big spoiler, he ends up making it out, and he ends up going to Alaska and presumably to start a new life. This was an ending that honestly, that's what surprised me the most. And I think it surprised a lot of people. And I know some people that were actually like upset by that ending. There were people that wanted Jesse to get like captured by the cops or, you know, like killed or something like that. Like they wanted it to kind of end like, you know, melancholy or kind of bittersweet, right? Like Breaking Bad did. But no. Jesse is actually the only character in the Breaking Bad universe, right? He starts off this whole entire series as like the lowest of the low, kind of like a scummy character. And yet at the end, he is the one who ultimately gets redemption and gets like a second chance at life. You know, when everyone else kind of fell from grace and then ended up dying. Now, you know, I know that there are some people that are so used to, you know, Vince Gilligan's kind of, you know, the way that he makes everything tragic and kind of bittersweet, that they didn't like the fact that Jesse got a happy ending, right? But to be honest, that's exactly why this happy ending was perfect, right? The fact that Jesse got a happy ending was perfect for the film, right? Breaking Bad audiences, you know, and fans of Vince Gilligan's work in general, we are so used to seeing Vince Gilligan, you know, write like tragic endings or write bittersweet endings, that we almost kind of expect it from him, right? That's one of his things. And I remember him saying that he wanted to surprise people with this movie, right? And so I was sitting there at the end of credits, like wondering what to make of the ending. And right as I was thinking, I'm like, well, like, you know, that was an interesting choice. Vince Gilligan said that he wanted to give a surprise ending. Like, I wonder. Oh, that's what. Like, as soon as I said that, kind of in my head, like I realized that was the surprise ending, right? We weren't expecting a happy ending for Jesse going into the movie. At least I wasn't, and everyone else I talked to that I know of wasn't really expecting like a happy ending for Jesse. So therefore, when we actually did get a happy ending for for Jesse, for one of the characters of Breaking Bad, it was a surprise, and it was a well-earned surprise. And I feel that it was, you know, that it was also a well-deserved happy ending. And I thought that end scene with Jesse and Jane, they didn't really make it clear whether that was a flashback or like a daydream that Jesse was having, but I felt that was perfect. Kristen Ritter is a great actress, and even that in that one scene, she was phenomenal. So overall, ladies and gentlemen, I would just say that El Camino is a fantastic film, especially considering that it was made for Netflix. Netflix really raised the bar with this feature film. I thought they're usually known for making pretty good serialized dramas, right? Like a really good like cinematic original series, but this was one of their first like movies that I was real impressed with. So they did a really good job on it. As far as like future Breaking Bad installments, to be honest, I am completely satisfied if this is the last property we get from the Breaking Bad franchise. In fact, I almost wish that we had gotten this, like 5 years ago. I wish that we had gotten this earlier instead of Better Call Saul. But, we got it anyway, and it was still really good. So, once again, props to Vince Gilligan, and, props to everyone who worked really hard. Props to Aaron Paul and the entire, cast and crew. You guys did an amazing job, and, this movie is why I love film, just in general. Why I love studying film and television and talking about it with you guys on this podcast. It was a perfect conclusion to Breaking Bad. It kind of wrapped up the whole saga. If Vince Gilligan wants to do more in the Breaking Bad saga, I'm sure he could, and I'm sure it would still be just as good to watch. But honestly, this was the perfect conclusion to a damn near perfect saga. If I were Vince Gilligan personally, I would maybe finally put the pen down, close the cover on the finished book, because you ended it perfectly, Vince. I couldn't think of a better ending personally. So just overall outstanding. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I have. And let me know what you think of El Camino. I'm going to be doing a blog review of it soon, which I will announce details for that, shortly. That has something to do with what I'm working on with Matt Dallas. I'll tell you guys that much. But I hope you guys enjoyed the movie as much as I do. And if you're so inclined, folks, we do have a kind of like a faux voicemail feature, for the podcast. If you want to tap the link down below in the description of whatever podcast feed, there should be a link to where you can leave a voicemail. Or else you can also go to anchor.fm/Whitfield Report, just like you would to get the podcast feed. And there's also a voicemail feature over there where you can, leave a voicemail for the show and let me know your opinions, for El Camino and for the Breaking Bad saga. You can also email me through my website at thesamwhitfield.com, and also, tweet me at samw_ndc. And yeah, just let me know what you guys thought of this movie. I really liked it. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Let me know what you think, fellow Breaking Bad fans. And anyway, I know that this review is kind of, has kind of been long and rambling and long-winded, and that's kind of what I do when I do solo reviews. There was a lot to unpack, and I think we did pretty good for an hour. And I hope this kind of made up for, missing a show on, for missing Saturday's show. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. And anyway, folks, I'll be back for sure on Thursday. And Jimmy finally got his tech support issues fixed. So I will be for sure having him on the show on this coming Saturday. For sure. Third time's the charm, right, folks? I'll see you guys on Thursday. Matt Dallas isn't confirmed yet, but like I said, I could be having him on Thursday, or I could be having him on a later date. And I've also got midterm exams this week too, so I'll be busy with that. But anyway, I'll still try to provide content for you guys as much as possible. But anyway, folks, I want to thank you guys so very much for listening. Have a great rest of your day or evening in the past, present, future hour, whenever you're listening to this. And from all of us here at NGC Studios, God bless and God save this great nation. God, freedom, and legacy in that order. And I will see you next time on the Whitfield Report. God bless. Hey there, folks. If you've made it this far to the end of the podcast, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to the show. You are the ones that make it possible for me to make an income from podcasting, and I greatly appreciate that just by listening to our show. You are helping us gain ad revenue. However, if you would really like to help support the show, I encourage you to please donate to the podcast and become a supporter of the show. You can head over to anchor.fm/Whitfield Report and click the support this podcast button and choose the amount that suits you to support the show. Or you can click the link in the show notes and it will directly take you to that page. If you can support the podcast, I really, really appreciate that. Anything that you can do to help out is greatly appreciated. Even if you can't afford to help financially support the podcast, I encourage you to please go on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Stitcher and please leave this podcast a positive 5-star review. That really helps us out here at the Whitfield Report. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next episode.